Hey guys, tonight's story starts with a moo in your ear, a sock full of manure water, and the creeping realization that your pillow is actually a rolled-up shirt that smells like feet and despair. No soap, no silence, no chance in hell. A cow is watching you like it knows you're behind on your chores and your dignity. Breakfast is cold pottage. Your boots are wet. Your soul is missing. Probably hiding behind the pitchfork you'll get blamed for losing. And somehow, this is the best part of your day. So before you get too cozy, take a second to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy this strange little corner of quiet storytelling. And drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's strangely comforting to know who else is drifting off with us around the world. Now get comfortable. Let the day melt away, and we'll drift back together into the quiet corners of the past. You wake up in a wooden loft that smells like hay, manure, and something vaguely sour, like spoiled cabbage or regret. The air is damp, the light is gray, and there's something sticky in your hair that you hope is just molasses from last week's feed spill. You're not entirely sure what day it is, but based on the cow currently mooing directly into your ear, it's probably time to get up. You're a milkmaid now. Congratulations and condolences. Your bed, if it qualifies as such, is a loose pile of straw matted into a vaguely human shape. It pokes your back in all the wrong places and smells like it was harvested by someone with a vendetta against comfort. You don't have a pillow, just a rolled-up tunic that now smells like feet and rain. There's no blanket either, only the thick wool shift you slept in, the same one you wore yesterday and the day before that. It's stiff with sweat and barn dust, but it's also the warmest thing you own. So you cling to it like it's spun gold. You sit up and immediately smack your head on a wooden beam. You don't curse out loud, someone might hear you, but your eyes water anyway. Somewhere below, a cow lets out a long, resentful groan. That's probably Agatha, the temperamental one. You'd say she hates you, but honestly, she just hates everything. Still, she produces milk like a saint, so the steward says she has a better attitude than you. The ladder down creaks like it's trying to report you for existing. Your feet touch the barn floor, which is covered in hay, old manure, and some other substance that squelches when you step in it. You don't ask. The boots you inherited from your cousin Liddy have a hole the size of a coin in one sole, so your socks are already wet. Of course, you only have one pair of socks, and they're more patch than fabric at this point. You'll try to dry them by the fire later, assuming the fire still works and the dog hasn't peed on the kindling again. The cows are awake, all of them. 36 enormous, warm-bellied beasts blinking at you like you're late to a meeting you didn't know you had. Their breath fogs the air, warm and sour and a little grassy. One of them licks the side of your skirt with a tongue like a damp rug. You whisper, "Morning, ladies," because you're polite even when no one's listening. You start with Maud, the agreeable one. She's already in position, chewing cud like it's gossip, and you're the guest of honor. You fetch your milking stool, which is less a stool and more a three-legged plank that wobbles every time you exhale. You sit, place the bucket under her, and get to work. The first squeeze is always the worst. Your hands are stiff from the cold. Your fingers haven't quite remembered how to bend yet. The milk squirts into the bucket with a sound that's equal parts satisfying and tragic. You think about breakfast, warm bread, maybe a boiled egg, even a bit of butter. And then you remember you're not dreaming. Breakfast will be pottage again. Cold if your brother got there first. You move to the next cow, and the next. Each one a test of patience and wrist endurance. Sometimes they cooperate. Sometimes they step sideways and knock over the bucket just as it's full. One of them farts directly into your face. Another sneezes on your shoulder. By the time you finish the morning round, you smell like a soup made of barnyard and broken spirit. You carry the heavy milk buckets across the yard, trying not to spill. Your arms are shaking. Your back feels like it's been trampled by oxen, and your left boot is slowly filling with something warm that might be milk or might be rainwater from last night's storm. Either way, your foot squishes. Inside the cottage, your mother nods at you and takes the bucket without a word. Your younger siblings are still asleep in the corner, bundled in a pile like puppies. You envy them briefly, before you realize one of them probably has lice and another wet the floor. Again, you step back outside. The barn awaits. There's still butter to churn, cows to brush, feed to scatter, and some vague crisis involving a missing pitchfork that will undoubtedly be blamed on you, whether you touched it or not. You take a deep breath. It smells like wet hay, cow breath, and your own sweat. A rooster crows like it invented morning. Somewhere far off, the church bell rings. You say a quick prayer, not for salvation, but for a moment of silence, a hot meal, and a cow that doesn't step on your foot today. One of those would be a miracle. Two would be suspicious. All three, impossible. You sigh, pick up the brush, and get back to it. Welcome to the barn. It's dawn, or something that vaguely resembles it. Gray light filtering through a crack in the barn wall, illuminating the frost clinging to the inside of the wooden planks. Your breath comes out in a cloud. Your fingers ache. Your toes are stiff. Somewhere in your right boot, a patch of frozen manure has fused with the sole like a disgusting little ice jewel. You're already milking. No gloves, no heater, no cozy fire flickering in the background. Just you, your freezing fingers, and the vast, indifferent backside of a cow named Hildegard, who looks like she's considering kicking you just for sport. She probably will, and you won't blame her. You wouldn't want someone touching your sensitive parts with ice-cold hands either. You shift on the stool. Bad idea. The wood is cold enough to make your backside go numb, and now one leg's shorter than the others. The whole thing rocks slightly with every pull, like you're milking on the deck of a sinking ship. You try to focus. Squeeze, release, squeeze, release. It's rhythm, not art. But your fingers don't want to cooperate. They've turned the color of raw turnips and feel about as useful. You've milked 3 cows already and lost all feeling in your pinkies somewhere between the second udder and the third sigh of despair. The bucket wobbles. You steady it with your knee, but your knee is also numb. Everything is numb, except your lower back, which has chosen this exact moment to throb with the dull persistence of someone knocking on a door you don't want to answer. You lean forward anyway, nose nearly in Hildegard's side, and try to breathe through your mouth. The scent is complex, earthy, sour, with a top note of ammonia and a hint of week-old hay. There's a warm spot on your forearm. You're not going to look at it. It's best not to know. Outside, you can hear the frost cracking on the fence posts. Somewhere, a bird attempts a chirp and then gives up halfway through, like even it can't be bothered to pretend this morning is worth celebrating. The village is quiet. No one else is awake yet, unless you count the old woman next door who gets up just to stare at things and disapprove of your posture. You switch cows. This one's named Winifred, and she does not like you. You sit down cautiously. Winifred has opinions, expressed mostly with her hooves. You gently touch her flank. She twitches. You mutter a short apology. She twitches again. You start to milk, slowly, carefully, trying to avoid eye contact like you're both pretending last week's kick never happened. It didn't bruise much. Each stream of milk hits the bottom of the bucket with a rhythmic slap, steam rising faintly in the cold air. It's almost hypnotic. You imagine the warmth from the milk seeping into your hands, but it doesn't. The milk is warm, yes, but your fingers remain little frozen sticks, stubbornly detached from the rest of your existence. At this point, you could probably snap one off like a carrot and not feel it until spring. You try to stretch your back while staying seated. Another mistake. Something pops. It might be your spine. It might be the stool. Either way, you hiss between your teeth and keep milking because stopping isn't an option. The cows don't care about your vertebrae. They just want to be emptied so they can go back to chewing cud and staring blankly into space like bovine philosophers. You've been up for 2 hours, and the sun hasn't even cleared the trees yet. Your arms are trembling. Your nose is running. You wipe it on your sleeve because that's what sleeves are for now. Clean fabric is a luxury you left behind months ago, or maybe years. Time's slippery when every day smells like cow, and your main source of protein is whatever was floating in the last batch of pottage. You finish with Winifred and limp to the next stall. Your boots crunch over straw and frost and something that squelches. It's too early to investigate. The next cow is Beatrix. She's relatively civil, which means she doesn't actively try to maim you. You take it as a kindness. You mutter a greeting. She blinks slowly. Her breath is warm on your face. You almost thank her for it. The milking continues. Your fingers continue to rebel. Your body continues to ache. And still, the day hasn't started yet. This is just the beginning. There will be buckets to carry, churns to fill, butter to whip. There will be scolding if you're too slow and silence if you're too fast. There will be spilled milk, probably onto your only dry sock. Again. You blink up at the barn roof, where icicles hang like fangs. You wonder what would happen if one fell. You wonder if it would hurt more or less than your current existence. Then you shake your head, because thoughts like that are dangerous. Not because they're dark, but because they're distracting. And distractions lead to accidents. Accidents lead to bruises. And bruises mean working hurt, not working less. The bucket is finally full. You pick it up carefully, arms shaking. You shuffle toward the door. Outside, the cold greets you like an old enemy. Your breath fogs in front of your face. You exhale, and it looks like you're sighing out your soul. You are, just a little. It's mid-morning. The frost on the barn doors has started to melt, which means the inside of the barn is now a wet, muddy soup. Your boots squelch with every step, making sounds that feel too close to your own internal monologue. You've already milked 6 cows, wrung out your sleeves twice, and found a suspicious lump in your porridge that you ate anyway because hunger wins over curiosity. You're running on stale bread, weak beer, and resentment. That should be enough. You're halfway through your next cow, the one you just named Beatrix because she seems like a Beatrix. Large, slow blinking, with the energy of someone who tolerates your existence, but only barely. She was behaving earlier. That was the trap. You sit down, bucket in place, hands already numb from the morning's efforts. Beatrix lets out a slow sigh that sounds exactly like your aunt when you explain why you aren't married yet. You lean in. You start to milk. The rhythm is slow, familiar. For a brief second, there's peace. And then it happens. Without warning, Beatrix jerks her back leg with the force of divine retribution. The bucket launches across the stall like it was catapulted from a medieval siege engine. It hits the wall. Milk explodes. Your hand is slapped away like it insulted her ancestors. And your shin? Beatrix lands a solid kick right into the bone. You inhale sharply, but you don't scream. Screaming is for people who think someone might help them. You just grip your leg and breathe through your teeth while Beatrix resumes chewing as if nothing happened. The bucket rolls to a stop upside down. You look at the floor. The milk is gone, pooled in the straw, seeping into manure, wasted. That was a whole hour of your life. You want to cry, or punch something soft, or sit down and not get up until the next plague arrives. But you don't. Because that's not how this works. You limp over to the bucket, pick it up, and check the handle. Bent. You'll need to fix that later with a rock and some swearing. Your shin is already swelling. The bruise will turn purple by lunch. It'll match the one on your elbow from last week, when the gate fell on you, because hinges in this century are a suggestion, not a guarantee. There's no vet to check if Beatrix is ill-tempered or just hates you personally. No OSHA to file a report with. No incident form to fill out. Just a nun, somewhere behind the cottage, shaking out laundry and muttering, "God tests the strong," like divine trial by cow is part of the gospel. You'd argue, but your mouth is currently full of silent cursing and a toothache. You refill the bucket with a sigh that carries the weight of 8 generations of underappreciated labor. You give Beatrix a wide berth. She watches you from the corner of her eye. There's no remorse, only cud. She's back to chewing, like the barn's resident philosopher, contemplating the futility of human ambition. You move on to the next cow. You don't even ask her name. Naming them feels too intimate now. You settle the stool, brace the bucket, and check her feet first. Your shin is still throbbing. You're considering making armor from firewood and hope. Milking resumes. The rhythm returns. Squeeze, release. Your hands move on autopilot. Your mind floats. Somewhere between "this isn't so bad" and "how did my life become utter-based," you realize you've started humming. A song your mother used to sing before she handed you a bucket and told you that life doesn't wait for poetry. You glance at Beatrix. She's staring at the barn wall. You stare too. You think, just for a moment, about switching lives. Let her wear the shift and haul the buckets. Let her listen to sermons and scoldings and her own knees clicking with every step. You'd happily spend the day standing around chewing and farting, but fate chose otherwise. By the time you finish the stall, your arms are shaking again. The bruise on your leg pulses in time with your heartbeat. You lift the bucket like it's filled with molten iron and shuffle toward the door. Outside, the sun is starting to break through the clouds, casting weak gold over the mud. It's almost pretty, if you squint hard and forget that your feet are soaked and your stomach's been growling for the past hour. You carry the milk inside. Your aunt takes it without a word, already heating yesterday's batch for cheese making. She glances at your limp and raises one eyebrow. You just say, "Beatrix," and she nods. Everyone's been kicked at least once. It's practically a rite of passage. You sit on the back step for a minute. Just a minute. The cold stone numbs your thighs. The bruise on your shin sings. The wind smells like livestock and wood smoke. You close your eyes and take a breath. You've got 3 more cows to go, then butter, then sweeping, then, if you're lucky, dinner. You'll keep going, because no one else will do it for you, and because the cow always kicks back. But so do you, quietly, slowly, with both hands and a bucket. Breakfast, if you can call it that, is waiting for you in a wooden bowl that looks like it once held nails. It's pottage again, thick, lukewarm, and the exact color of your mood. You prod it with your spoon. It jiggles. That's not promising. But you eat it anyway, because there's nothing else, and your stomach has started chewing on itself in protest. Pottage isn't a dish so much as an ongoing experiment, a culinary mystery that's been simmering for several days, maybe a week. It's made of barley, onions, turnips, and whatever else someone tossed in yesterday. A chunk of something gray floats to the top. You hope it's a root vegetable. You hope a lot of things. Most of them are in vain. You take a bite. It's chewy in a way that suggests the ingredients gave up halfway through cooking. It tastes like wet dirt and sadness. You chew anyway. Your teeth hurt, but your pride hurts more, so you swallow and pretend it's fine. Next to the bowl is your morning beverage. Not tea, not water. Certainly not anything refreshing. It's beer. Weak, cloudy, warm, and you drink it because the water will kill you faster than the cows. The beer's bitter, but it's safe-ish. You sip it with the enthusiasm of someone swallowing medicine while trying not to gag. Across the room, your little brother picks a beetle out of his bowl and flicks it under the table. You don't even blink. That's breakfast entertainment now. You remember a time when you used to talk at breakfast. Now you just chew and hope no one asks you for anything. You smell like churned butter. Not the nice kind. Not fresh. You smell like the end of butter, like the part that clings to the sides of the churn and curdles in the cracks. It's soaked into your clothes, your skin, your soul. Your hair is stiff with something that could be whey or could be despair. Your fingernails are lined with something suspicious. It might be manure. It might be cheese. It might be both. You consider scrubbing them. Then you remember there's no soap left. The last bit was used to wash your uncle's socks. Now everything just smells faintly of feet and lye. The fire in the hearth crackles, but it's not for comfort. It's for boiling water and scaring away the damp. The cottage walls weep with condensation. Your boots are still wet from yesterday. So are your socks. You put them on anyway, because they're the only ones that don't have holes in both heels. A flea jumps off your skirt and lands on your spoon. You flick it away and keep eating. Parasites are just part of the family now. You've named one Gerald. He lives near your collarbone and bites you during prayer. You finish the pottage. Or at least the edible parts. There's a film of something at the bottom of the bowl that refuses to be classified. You scrape around it and hand the bowl to your sister, who's already eyeing the leftovers. Hunger does that. It makes you brave and gross at the same time. The table is sticky, always sticky. No one remembers why. Someone spilled ale on it 2 winters ago, and it's been vaguely tacky ever since. You've accepted it. Like the draft under the door. Like the sound the ceiling makes when it rains. Like the fact that your back has been sore since you were 12. The meal ends when the bowls are empty, not when anyone is full. That's not how meals work here. You eat what's there, and then you leave the table slightly hollow and pretending not to be angry about it. Outside, the cows are already making noises. They don't care that you just ate. They don't care that your stomach is still gurgling in protest. They're ready. They're always ready. You glance out the window and see Beatrix licking the fence post again like she's daring it to fight back. You wipe your hands on your apron, which is already covered in smears of butter, flour, something red you hope was a berry, and a few yellowish stains you've decided to stop identifying. The cloth is stiff and smells faintly of onion. Your sister is combing nits out of her hair with a fork. You don't ask whose fork. Some questions are dangerous before noon. You get up from the table, your back cracks, your knees echo the sentiment. You take a deep breath, which smells like smoke, sweat, and old turnips. You tie your scarf, pull on your cloak, and step back outside. The wind greets you like a slap. The mud grabs at your boots. Somewhere, a chicken screeches. Another day begins. You burp slightly. It tastes like barley and resignation, pottage and parasites. That's breakfast, and you'll be tasting both for the rest of the day. The plan was simple. Move the cows from one pasture to another. That's it. That's all. A short walk, a casual shuffle, a bit of light mooing, a few pats on the flank, maybe a moment of bonding with a creature who outweighs you by 600 pounds, but respects your authority, or at least your stick. Instead, you're covered in mud. Your right boot is missing somewhere near a blackberry bush, and a cow is galloping. Yes, galloping toward the riverbank, like it just remembered it left the stove on. It started like all disasters do, quietly. You opened the gate. You tapped the stick gently against the barn door. The cows, gods of inertia, blinked at you like you'd suggested they start paying rent. One by one, they lumbered out, slowly, as if time owed them something. You counted as they passed. 1, 2, 3, 9. You had 10. You definitely had 10. You always have 10. But now there are 9. You look around. The field is still empty except for your boot, which is waving gently from a puddle like a shipwrecked soul begging for rescue. You scan the horizon and see nothing. Then you hear it. A crashing sound. A triumphant bellow. And there she is. Agnes, the escapee, sprinting across the neighboring orchard like a war horse with no war. You shout. You wave your arms. She doesn't care. She's tasted freedom, and she's not giving it up for a handful of hay and your questionable people skills. You run, or try to. You limp hop with one bare foot and one muddy sock, dodging cow pies, brambles, and your own self-respect. Agnes has made it to the road. She pauses to sniff a cart. The cart horse looks terrified, the driver less so. "Is that yours?" he shouts. You nod. He spits. "Figures." You don't ask what that means. You're too busy trying to coax a half-ton fugitive away from someone's beet patch. By the time you corner her near the edge of the village, you've attracted a crowd. 2 small children, one deeply unamused baker, and worst of all, the miller's wife, who has never liked you and now has visual confirmation that you are a walking disgrace. "Try a turnip," someone suggests. You assume this is a joke until a turnip lands near your feet. You don't ask where it came from. You pick it up. It's heavy, cold, covered in something sticky. You throw it. It hits the ground near Agnes's front hooves. She freezes. Then, incredibly, she turns. She walks toward the turnip. She sniffs it. She eats it. Victory. Not graceful, but real. With a mixture of prayer, threats, and gentle bribery, You manage to lead her back through the village, one squelching step at a time. The onlookers begin to disperse. The children boo. The baker mutters something about idiots and livestock. The miller's wife smirks like she's going to dine on this story for the next month. You don't care. Agnes is walking. That's all that matters. Back at the pasture, the other cows are waiting, chewing slowly, unimpressed by your heroism. You push open the gate. Agnes strolls in like nothing happened. You follow, panting, bruised, and muddy from the knee down. You do a quick head count. 10. They're all here. None of them look grateful. The sun is lower now. Too low. You check the sky. You're late. You are officially, undeniably, catastrophically late for afternoon milking. You limp back to the barn, retrieve your boot from the puddle, and wring out your sock. You don't even bother changing. The smell will follow you either way. By the time you pick up your milking stool, your arms are trembling from the chase. Your legs are cramping. Your patience is a torn scrap hanging by a thread. Inside the barn, Beatrix is already mooing like she's been waiting all day for you to disappoint her. You sit down, you start to milk. And the whole time, your mind replays the moment Agnes broke into a full gallop, tail raised, hooves flying, joy in her eyes. You admire her a little. You resent her more. Because Agnes got to run. Agnes got to leave. Agnes tasted freedom, even if only for an hour. You got mud in your hair and a turnip bruise on your hip. You squeeze. You breathe. You milk. The bucket fills slowly, warm and frothy. The cows settle. The barn creaks. Outside, the sun dips past the trees. You're back where you belong, among beasts, beneath judgment, behind schedule. But all 10 cows are here, and you're only slightly broken. Afternoon milking begins. Again. You're not ready. Your body isn't ready. Your soul has left a note saying it refuses to participate and is currently hiding in the thatch roof, weeping gently. But the cows are ready. They are always ready. And by ready, you mean standing motionless in the stalls, chewing cud like philosophers too bored to speak, but too judgmental to look away. You grab the bucket. Again. You grab the stool. Again. You drag yourself over to Maud, the least offensive of the lot, and sit with the grace of someone whose knees no longer function and whose spine has begun filing complaints to the union of vertebrae. You place your forehead against her warm side, mostly for warmth, but partly because you're on the brink of emotional collapse, and she smells like hay and indifference. You begin. Squeeze, release, squeeze, release. It's not a job. It's not even a task. It's a slow-motion endurance test orchestrated by creatures who neither care about you nor recognize your suffering. Your arms are jelly. Not metaphorically. Not poetically. Literally. If you poked them with a stick, they'd wobble like aspic. Your back is screaming, not like a polite complaint or a stern warning. Number. It's wailing like a ghost who stubbed its toe in the afterlife and never got over it. Every movement sends sharp messages to your lower spine, each one saying, "Why did we agree to this again?" You don't answer, you just keep milking. You are developing calluses in places you didn't know could grow calluses. The base of your fingers, the soft crease in your palm, some strange new spot between your thumb and wrist that you've never noticed until now. Congratulations, your hands are evolving into hooves. You finish Maud and move to the next one. Winifred, less agreeable, slightly suspicious. You make eye contact for a second too long, and she shifts her weight like she's considering violence. You say a silent prayer, lower your head, and begin again. Squeeze, release. Squeeze, release. The barn is warm now, but not in a good way. It's damp and thick with the smell of manure, sweat, and something vaguely metallic that might be blood or might be the iron nail sticking out of the stall wall that you keep forgetting to fix. You pause for a moment, shake out your hands. It doesn't help. Your fingers twitch involuntarily, as if still milking invisible cows in the air. You sigh and move on. Beatrix awaits. Of course she does. You sit down. She shifts. You pause. She swishes her tail, and it hits you squarely across the mouth. You taste something you don't want to identify. You continue anyway. The cows don't care. They don't thank you. They don't apologize when they fart directly into your face or sneeze on your apron. They just stand there, massive and unmoved, chewing slowly, eyes half-lidded like old monks contemplating the nature of grass. You keep milking. The sun outside is slipping lower, painting the barn in golden streaks that somehow make the dirt look even dirtier. You hear someone laughing in the village, probably the baker's daughter. She doesn't have to milk anything. She doesn't even wake up before mid-morning. Her hands are soft. Her hair smells like lavender. You haven't smelled like anything but whey and despair for months. You switch cows. You forget this one's name. It might be Hilda. It might be Bertha. At this point, they're all just large, warm rectangles with hooves and opinions. Your arms tremble as you lift the next bucket. The weight drags your shoulders down like a punishment for ambition. You shuffle across the barn, thighs chafing, one boot heel flapping with each step. You think about sitting down, just for a minute, just long enough to not be upright. You don't. You keep going. Because afternoon milking is not optional. Because if the buckets aren't full, there's no butter. And if there's no butter, the steward gets angry. And if the steward gets angry, someone's dinner disappears. Probably yours. So you keep going. You milk until your fingers seize up. You milk until your knees ache. You milk until you no longer feel time passing, only cows moving, one after the other, in an endless bovine procession. Eventually, the last one finishes. You sit back. Your hair is sticking to your neck. Your shift is damp. Your face is slick with a combination of sweat, milk splatter, and existential exhaustion. You look at the line of cows, their sides rising and falling slowly, their jaws working in unison like a furry orchestra of disinterest. They are full. You are empty. The barn is quiet now, except for the rhythmic chewing, the occasional tail slap, and your own shallow breathing. You sit in the stall and stare at nothing. Afternoon milking is over. Until tomorrow, when it all begins again. Now it's time to churn butter, which sounds quaint when you hear it in a song or read it in a storybook. The fair maid churning butter in the morning light, sleeves rolled up, hair in ribbons, face glowing with rustic charm. That's not you. You're damp. You're swollen in strange places. Your hair is frizzed into something birds might try nesting in. The only thing glowing is the sweat on your forehead, and even that's losing its shine. You drag the churn out from the corner of the cottage. It's a wooden barrel, nearly half your size, with a lid that sticks no matter how gently you try to remove it. Your hands still ache from milking. Your shoulders are tight. Your wrists feel like someone tried to twist them off in your sleep. And now, here it is, the churn, waiting, watching, mocking. You pour in the cream. It's thick and slightly yellowed from sitting too long. The scent hits you, a sweet, sour wave of milk on the verge of quitting. you've smelled worse. Yesterday, for example, when something in the storage shed turned out not to be onions after all. You grab the dasher, a long stick with wooden crossbars, and plunge it into the cream. It makes a wet thump that's far less satisfying than you'd hoped. Then you begin. Up, down, over and over. There's no rhythm to it, no grace, just pressure and pain, and the realization that butter is not a reward from the gods, it's a punishment from them. Every churn drags heat into your arms. Your fingers lock, your elbows tremble. You feel like you're stirring concrete with a ladle made of regret. Outside, someone is laughing. Not at you, presumably, but it still feels personal. You breathe through your nose and keep churning. The cream begins to thicken. You tell yourself this is progress. You tell yourself you're building character. You tell yourself all the lies you need to get through this. Up, down, up, down. The sound changes. Slightly more slosh, less splash. Your heart flutters with hope. Maybe you're almost there. Maybe this batch will break early. Maybe today is different. You peek inside. It's not different. It's just lumpier. You keep going. After 30 minutes, your arms are shaking. After 40, your back has filed for separation. By 50, you've sweat through your shift. The air in the room is thick with the smell of cream, salt, wood, and effort. You are the smell now. You pause to stretch. Bad idea. Your left shoulder audibly clicks. Your right bicep throbs like a bad drum beat. You look at your hands. The knuckles are red. There's a blister forming on your palm, right on top of the one from last week. You could cry, but that would just add salt to the butter. You push the churn aside for a second, wipe your face with the back of your wrist, and drink a mouthful of the weak beer someone left on the table. It's warm, flat. It tastes like barley and defeat. You go back, because butter doesn't churn itself, because no one else is going to do it, because this is your job, your duty, your daily descent into dairy madness. Eventually, you hear it, the slap, the glorious telltale sound of the butter separating from the buttermilk, a thick, sticky thud echoing through the barrel. You open the lid. Inside, a pale lump of something that looks like it survived a storm. Butter. Sort of. You fish it out with a wooden paddle and start pressing out the liquid. It's cold, slippery, and absolutely refuses to be shaped by anything but force. You knead it into blocks, your fingers sliding across its surface like they're too tired to hold on. The buttermilk spills onto your apron. You smell like spoiled cream and despair. You wrap the butter in cloth, set it on a board, and stare at your work. 4 small blocks. That's all. 90 minutes of agony for something that will be gone by tomorrow. You lean against the wall. Your arms twitch. Your neck is sore. Your back is permanently bent into a shape that suggests you were once taller and more hopeful. Someone walks by the window and says, "Smells good." You consider throwing the butter at them, but you don't. You need it for dinner. You clean the churn, slowly. Each scrape of the paddle echoing in your bones. The cloth you use is already sour. Your hands are slick. Your face is flushed. You haven't felt clean in weeks. Butter making in fairy tales is charming. In real life, it's a slow descent into madness. A trial by dairy. A test of will and wrist. You've passed, for now. But the churn is still there, waiting for tomorrow, and your arms are already begging for mercy. You smell like a cow. Not metaphorically, not insultingly, literally. You smell like warm animal sweat, spoiled milk, damp straw, and the faint but unmistakable scent of manure that's been tracked across every inch of your life and wedged permanently under your fingernails. There is no bath, no soap, no gently steaming tub filled with herbs and lavender oil, no bath salts, no candles, just a bucket. And if you're lucky, it's not frozen solid or already half full of things you didn't put in it. Sometimes it's rainwater, sometimes it's well water, sometimes you don't ask. If you're very lucky, it's cleanish, but it's always cold. Your rag, a square of linen so old it remembers a time before you existed, is stiff with dried sweat and lye. You dunk it in the bucket and slap it against your neck. The cold hits you like betrayal. You hiss, grit your teeth, and scrub. One armpit, then the other. You try your face. You get as far as your jaw before the rag snags on a piece of hay stuck in your hair. You leave it. You'll get it tomorrow. Probably. You scrub your forearms next. There's something crusted on your elbow. Could be butter. Could be something Beatrix sneezed on you. You scrape it off with your fingernail and flick it toward the fire. The fire refuses to acknowledge it. Your hair is matted. There's no brush, just your fingers and blind hope. You run your hands through the knots. You hit resistance almost immediately. You tug. Something pulls back. You stop. You compromise by tying it up in a kerchief and pretending it never happened. You change your shift. Not into a clean one, into a slightly less awful one, the one with fewer stains and only one broken tie. You hold it up to your nose. You regret that, but it's dry, and in this world, dry beats clean. You slide it on, the fabric clinging to your skin like it's disappointed in your life choices. Your apron has given up. It no longer pretends to protect anything. It's stiff, brownish gray, and smells like boiled turnip and despair. You tie it around your waist anyway. Habit, ritual, a final act of rebellion against total decay. The cottage air is thick with sour milk, smoke, and wet wool. You don't notice it anymore, but you notice when you go outside. That's when people wrinkle their noses. That's when they step slightly to the side, like you're a weather system best avoided. And they smell terrible too. It's not just you. It's everyone. The entire village is a pot of boiling humans marinated in sweat, livestock, and communal disinterest in hygiene. The baker smells like yeast and grease. The blacksmith smells like smoke and melted leather. The priest smells like incense, wine, and denial. But somehow, your particular flavor is worse. You're a milkmaid, which means your personal perfume is fermented cream with subtle notes of hoofprint and udder. You walk past a group of boys, and one of them coughs theatrically. Another mutters something about barns. You keep walking. You don't have time for their commentary. You also don't have the energy to throw a rock, which is the only appropriate response. You save your strength for later, for milking, for butter, for surviving another night in a bed that smells faintly of mildew and something that might once have been cabbage. You pass the tailor's daughter, who gives you a tight-lipped smile that says, "I'd rather die than wear your apron," but I'm too polite to say it aloud. You return a nod that means, "I've accepted my fate, but I still remember when you fell in the duck pond." Your feet squelch in your boots, not because of water, because of sweat. Your socks, knitted by someone with good intentions and poor talent, have bunched up around your ankles and are slowly becoming part of your skin. You consider removing them, but that would require unlacing the boots, and you don't trust yourself to get them back on without crying. You itch, constantly, somewhere between your shoulder blades. in the middle of your back, behind your knee, on your scalp. You're fairly sure you're a walking buffet for fleas, and they've invited their cousins. You scratch without thinking. Everyone does. It's less a habit and more a communal activity. You catch your reflection in a puddle. You almost look like a person, until you move and the angle shifts, and you realize your face has a smudge of something pale near your mouth. You rub at it. It spreads. You give up. The smell follows you, into the pasture, into the barn, into your sleep. You dream of clean sheets and warm baths, and someone gently pouring rose water over your hair. Then you wake up stuck to your own arm, wrapped in a wool blanket that smells like goat and regret. You smell like a cow, and tomorrow you'll smell even worse. You carry the full pail with both hands, arms trembling from a day that hasn't even ended yet. It sloshes with every step, threatening to spill, but you've long since mastered the tilt and walk shuffle of someone who knows milk is precious and mistakes are punished. Your back aches. Your wrists feel like wet rope. Your skirt clings to your legs in sweaty folds. But the milk, warm, heavy, and slightly frothy, is beautiful. At least it was. Because you don't get to keep it. The pail isn't for you. Not really. A small splash will make it to your family's table, if it survives the journey. A ladle or two in the morning porridge. A smear of butter for the crust of rye bread you'll gnaw on with teeth that are already half gone. The rest, nearly all of it, goes to other people. People who do not milk cows. People who have never knelt on a damp floor with manure squishing under their knees and a tail smacking them in the ear. The milk tax is due. First, to the Lord. Of course, always to the Lord. You live on his land. The cows graze in his fields. The barn leaks under his ownership. Everything you touch technically belongs to him, including your labor, your sweat, and this heavy, sloshing pail. You carry it up the lane to the manor kitchen, where the cook eyes you like you're a walking dirt clod. You set it down. She sniffs it, nods. Doesn't thank you. She never does. The milk disappears into their cream soups and golden pastries and roasted dishes that you'll never taste. The butter gets whipped and sculpted into little decorative curls. Someone drinks it straight from a goblet. You imagine them sipping it slowly while lounging in furs, complaining about how exhausting hunting is when the deer don't line up properly. You get back to the barn and fill another pail. This one is for the church. You walk it over the gravel path to the chapel steps, where Father Anselm waits with his hands tucked into his sleeves, like he's too holy to touch the world directly. He blesses the milk, mumbles something about divine providence, and takes it from your arms with the air of someone doing you a favor. You smile, because not smiling invites questions. He'll distribute it to the worthy, which is a category that somehow never includes your family. The milk will become cheese and butter, sold to travelers and saved for feast days. The coins go into a locked chest behind the altar. You've never seen inside. You're not allowed. Another trip back to the barn. Another pail. This one you carry slower. Your arms are shaking. Your back is bent. The strap of your apron keeps slipping off your shoulder, and your foot is starting to blister where your sock bunched up earlier. This pail is for home, the smallest portion, whatever is left. You guard it like treasure, even though it's still warm and smells slightly of hay and animal breath. You strain it through cloth. You tuck it in the cool corner of the pantry. You pray no one knocks it over. You sit at the table that night and drink a thin cup of it, mixed with water to make it last. Your little brother gets a second helping because he cried during prayer, and everyone felt sorry for him. You scrape your bread in the butter bowl and come away with barely a whisper of flavor. You chew anyway. You milked every drop. But everyone else profits. The Lord gets his cut. The church gets their cut. The steward counts buckets like blessings, and you keep count in blisters. The system runs smoothly because no one listens to the milkmaid when she says it isn't fair. They pat your head. They quote scripture. They say suffering builds character. You are capitalism in a dress. You are labor wrapped in homespun linen, bent over a bucket while wealth trickles upward like cream, rising in a churn you'll never own. You are the unpaid invoice of a system that eats its workers and thanks the saints for the feast. Sometimes you wonder what it would feel like to spill the milk on purpose, to stand at the edge of the lane and pour it slowly into the dust, one pail after another, until the earth drinks what the Lord and the priest never earned. But then you think of your mother's face, the tight purse of her lips, the way her hands tremble when she kneads dough without enough butter. So you carry the milk, you pay the tax, you survive, and tomorrow you'll do it again. The local priest says dairy is a gift from God. He says this during sermons, standing beneath a carved wooden cross and gesturing skyward with arms that have never churned butter or hoisted a sloshing milk pail at dawn. He smiles when he says it, eyes closed, face tilted toward the heavens. Milk and honey, he says, floweth from the hands of the faithful. You are currently elbow deep in a wooden tub filled with gray water and floating scraps of curdled regret. The cheesecloth won't come clean. It smells like spoiled goat dreams. Your blouse, damp with whey and self-loathing, sticks to your back like a second skin soaked in failure. If this is a gift from God, it came without instructions or mercy. Goat cheese sounds luxurious if you've never made it. It sounds like something served in a palace on a silver platter. In reality, it is sour, unpredictable, and spreads like a bad mood. The goats themselves are ill-tempered, smug, and fully aware they're impossible to manage. They escape fences just to remind you that you don't control your life. You scrub harder. The cheesecloth is stiff with old fat. Your knuckles are raw. The lye soap has run out, so you're using boiled ash and good intentions. The water is cold and smells faintly of something that died a few days ago and has been patiently waiting for attention ever since. Behind you, your sister is poking holes in the new wheels of cheese with a stick, muttering something about air pockets and sin. You've stopped listening. You're focused on the cloth. If you scrub long enough, maybe it'll disintegrate and you can claim divine intervention. The priest visits sometimes. He doesn't touch anything. He praises the cheese like it sprang from the earth, untainted by hands like yours. He blesses the butter. He dips a finger into the curds and nods like he's communing with heaven. You wonder what he would say if he had to clean this tub, if he had to pick goat hair out of his soup because the cheesecloth wasn't washed properly. You wring the cloth out. Yellow water drips onto the floor and pools around your shoes. You'll mop it up later, or you won't. Either way, it'll smell worse tomorrow. There is no silence here, only the constant low sounds of a household grinding itself into functionality, the slosh of water, the bleat of goats, the muffled snapping of cloth being shaken out in the wind. Someone somewhere is always coughing. Someone is always angry. Someone is always quoting scripture as though it will fix the fact that your hands are cracked and your skirt has mildew in the hem. You smell like cheese. Not fresh cheese. Not good cheese. You smell like cheese that was forgotten in a cellar and rediscovered during a rat hunt. Your blouse has absorbed the odor. Your hair has given up. No matter how often you rinse or scrub, it clings to you, a badge of your unimportance. You sit back for a moment, just long enough to stretch your spine, which makes a sound like kindling snapping. You look at your fingers. The skin under your nails is dark. Your palms are slick. You imagine being anywhere else. A convent, maybe. Somewhere quiet, where the nuns don't ask you to scrub cloths, only your soul. Somewhere where the cheese is made by someone holier and more well-rested. You imagine yourself wearing clean linen and whispering Latin, not shouting at goats in the mud. But you're here, with the cloth, with the tub, with your blouse plastered to your back, and your dignity unraveling one way-slick hour at a time. The priest walks by outside. You hear his sandals slap the packed earth. He's humming. Something cheerful. You hate him a little. God's bounty, he says as he passes the window. He doesn't stop. He never stops. He never asks who churned it, who cleaned it, who cried into a wheel of cheese last winter when it collapsed in the press and ruined 3 days of work. You return to scrubbing. The cloth finally gives in. The lumps loosen. The fibers relax. You rinse it twice, then hang it to dry on a crooked peg by the hearth. The peg wobbles. Everything wobbles. The smell remains. You will carry it into dinner, into sleep, into the next sermon, where you'll sit on the cold floor and try not to fidget while the priest speaks of abundance and thankfulness. He will lift his hands to the ceiling and proclaim that dairy is a gift. You, who have soaked your skin in curdled milk and molded cheese by moonlight, will nod and say nothing. You weren't supposed to name the cows. That was the rule. They were livestock, not pets, tools, not companions. Naming them was foolish, sentimental, even dangerous, because animals with names tend to become animals you notice, animals you talk to, animals you miss. But Brita named herself. She was the only one who didn't try to step on your foot the first day. She blinked at you with her long lashes and let you scratch behind her ears. She didn't kick, she didn't shove. She chewed her cud like a philosopher in a good mood. You sat beside her after milking once and whispered the name to see how it felt. Brita. It fit. She didn't protest. After that, you started saving her favorite bits of hay. She liked the pieces with clover in them. You pulled burrs from her coat and smoothed down the coarse patch on her flank. You talked to her when your back ached too much to stand. She didn't answer, but she blinked slowly, like she understood the general tone of your suffering. On slow afternoons, when the work was done and the sun painted the barn gold, you'd sit beside her and braid her tail. She stood still for it, shifting only once to nudge your knee, like she was making sure you were still there. You tied little grass knots in the ends and pretended it looked like ribbon. She didn't mind. She liked you. You started humming when you milked her. Just little tunes, nothing fancy. Things your mother used to sing before her voice gave out. Brita stood calm the whole time, even when the other cows swished their tails angrily or tried to knock the bucket over with a back kick. You always did Brita first. She made the rest feel possible. You told her things you didn't tell anyone else. Not big things, just the little ones that didn't fit in human conversations. Like how you hated the way your shift clung to your ribs when it rained, or how the priest's new sermon made you feel itchy inside, like your soul didn't fit quite right anymore. She listened, or at least, she didn't walk away. That counted for something. You don't know how old she was. Old enough to be calm. Young enough to still have energy when the flies came thick and fast in summer. She had a scar on her ear, just a little notch that looked like someone once missed their mark with a branding iron. You traced it with your thumb sometimes. She didn't flinch. One morning, you walk into the barn and the air feels wrong, still, empty. There's space where there shouldn't be. The stalls are quiet, too quiet. You do the count in your head, then again, out loud. 9. You count again. Still 9. Your heart sinks in your chest like a dropped pail. You check each stall even though you know. You check anyway, because maybe she's just behind something. Maybe she slipped a rope and wandered outside. Maybe someone moved her to the lower pasture. Maybe... Number. She's gone. No note, no explanation. Just the empty stall. The bit of chewed hay still clinging to the slats. The smell of her still in the air, earthy and warm, faint and fading. You don't ask questions. That's another rule. Cows disappear sometimes. You know where they go. You've seen the butcher's cart. You've seen the stains on the ground behind the storage shed. You've helped carry the buckets inside. But this time, it's Brita. You don't cry right away. You finish the chores first. You milk the other cows, though your hands tremble, and you miss your grip more than once. You churn butter with a blank stare, letting the dasher thud against the sides of the barrel without rhythm. You eat breakfast without tasting it. Later, when no one's looking, you slip back into the barn. You sit down in the straw where her hooves used to press. The stall still holds her shape. You curl into it. You close your eyes. That's when you cry. Not loud. Not with wailing. Just slow, hot tears that soak into the straw and disappear before anyone can see. You don't say her name. Saying it would make it too real. You just press your face into the hay and pretend, for a little while, that she's still here. That if you hum the right song, she'll come nosing back into the stall, tail swishing, eyes soft, waiting for clover and braids. But she doesn't. She won't. And tomorrow, you'll braid no tails. You'll sing no songs. You'll milk the cows without names. Because now you understand the rule. It's winter now, and the barn is a tomb. Not just cold, frozen. Everything solid, everything still. The air doesn't move. The boards groan under the weight of ice. The straw on the floor crunches when you step on it, brittle and sharp like dried bones. You can see your breath with every exhale, puffing out like little ghosts that want nothing to do with you. Your fingers are numb before you reach the second stall. You're wearing 3 tunics, 2 wool, 1 linen, a cloak over that, a scarf wrapped around your head and half your face, leaving only your eyes and the tip of your nose to suffer the full insult of the weather. The fabric stiffens with frost before you finish the first cow. And still you're shivering, violently, constantly. Your knees knock together when you walk. Your teeth chatter when you speak. So you stop speaking. The milk freezes in the bucket if you don't move fast. Not gradually, not politely. It seizes. 1 minute it's warm and sloshing. The next, a crust forms across the top like a sheet of pale glass. You have to break it with a ladle to keep pouring. You do this without comment, without thinking. Just crack and pour. Crack and pour. You stop wiping your nose. What's the point? It's red and raw and dripping, and there's no dry cloth left on your body anyway. Every time you inhale, it stings. You're fairly certain your nostrils are lined with frost. One of the cows, Edla, the jumpy one, has frostbite on her ears. You didn't notice at first, not until she flinched when you touched her. The tips are black. You want to weep for her, but your eyes won't cooperate. Too dry. Or maybe frozen. You can't tell anymore. You milk anyway. Because there's no such thing as too cold when people still expect butter, still demand cheese, still watch the barns for signs of weakness and want. The handle of the stool burns your hand when you lift it. The wood should be warm, familiar, but it's like sitting on a block of stone. Your legs cramp. Your fingers can barely close around the udder. The milk that comes is slower now, colder. Even the cows seem resigned, shifting their hooves only enough to not fall over and die. You've started talking to yourself, quietly, just under your breath. Not words, really, just sounds to keep the silence from swallowing you. The barn creaks. The cows breathe. Somewhere in the rafters a bird died last week and froze before it could fall. It's still there, a little icicle with wings. You hate winter. You hate how the snow looks clean but smells like rot. How the sun shows up for 10 minutes a day and then disappears like it's ashamed to be seen with you. How your boots never dry. How your bones ache even before you move. How everything that was tolerable in summer becomes cruel in the cold. You sleep beside the hearth now, curled up like a dog, trying to steal warmth from embers that don't last long enough. Your dreams are quiet, colorless. You don't even imagine better weather, just fewer blisters. A blanket that doesn't itch, a moment where your breath doesn't hurt. The goats have stopped yelling. They huddle together, their bony flanks pressing close, eyes wide and glassy. You envy them. At least they have company. You don't. The others in the household are busy with their own suffering. No one talks much anymore. Words cost warmth. You eat in silence, wrapped in layers, shivering even by the fire. No one makes jokes. No one sings. The world has narrowed to survival and soup, mostly turnips. Always cold. You trudge to the barn again in the evening. The sky is already dark. It's always dark. The stars are too bright, mocking pinpricks in a sky that has never once offered you help. The bucket slips from your hands. You watch it fall. The milk splashes and freezes before it finishes spreading. You stare at it. Your shoulders sag. You don't scream. You don't cry. You just pick it up and start again. Tomorrow you'll do this again, in the same tunics, with the same aching fingers, the same frost-bitten nose and wooden stool, the same silence. It's winter now, and you are still here. Your hands are cracked open. The skin has split in the soft parts where fingers meet palm, in the stretch between knuckles, in the place where the dasher's wooden handle has rubbed day after day after day. Red lines, pale scabs, tiny oozing cuts that never quite seal because there's never time to let them, because there's always another pail to carry, another churn to work, another cow to coax into stillness. You wear the wounds like part of your uniform. No bandages. Just dried blood under your nails and the sting of lye soap when you try to scrub them clean. You clench your fists when people are looking. You hide your fingers in folds of skirt. No one asks. No one wants to know. Your back is wrong now. It didn't used to be. Once you could stand up straight without flinching. Once you could stretch and yawn and feel nothing more than the pleasant pull of muscle waking up. Now, when you stand, it takes time. A breath. A little gasp as your spine remembers how to uncurl from the knot it's become. You lean forward when you walk, not because you're old, but because you're becoming old faster than you should. Your knees crack. Your shoulders twitch. Your hips ache in the cold, and in the heat, and in the rain, and in the quiet moments when nothing should hurt, but everything does anyway. You sleep in pain and wake up worse. The mattress is stuffed with straw. It used to feel soft. That was a lie. It never was. Now it feels like sleeping on sticks. Your joints press into it and leave dents that don't spring back. You turn over a dozen times and still end up in the same bent shape by morning, stiff and silent and sore in places you didn't know had names. No one asks how you slept. No one cares. You get up. You put on the same clothes. You shove your feet into boots that rub your blisters raw. You stretch, not because it helps, but because if you don't, you'll seize up completely. You carry buckets. You haul wood. You bend, you lift, you twist, you push. Every motion etches itself deeper into your body. Your elbows are swollen. Your wrists creak. There's a knot at the base of your spine that won't go away, no matter how many times you try to rub it out with your knuckles in the dark. But you're just a milkmaid. There's no doctor, no ointment, no poultices soaked in herbs and wrapped in soft linen, no warm baths scented with lavender or eucalyptus, words you've never heard, plants you'll never see. There is vinegar and spit and willpower. There is a village healer, technically, an old woman who smells like onion and rosemary, and whose hut is full of drying weeds and dead birds. She fixes broken legs and pulls splinters and tells stories about witches that aren't funny. You don't go to her for this, for the things that hurt but don't bleed enough to count. You learn to walk differently, to lift with your knees instead of your back, until your knees give out, and then you lift with something else. You grip the churn differently. You switch arms when milking, even when the other one feels like lead. You pad your hands with old cloth, thin as paper, just enough to keep the cracks from splitting wider. You learn to bite your tongue when the pain flares, to make no sound when your wrist buckles or your ankle rolls or your hip locks mid-step. You learn to breathe through it, to keep going, to get it done. And when you finally sit down, just for a moment, just to rest, you stare at your hands. You turn them over. You trace the scabs, the ridges, the broken skin. You imagine what they used to look like. Softer, cleaner, less red, less ruined. You miss that version of yourself. The one with straight posture and quiet joints and the ability to stretch without gritting her teeth. But she's gone, melted into this one. The one with bandaged fingers made of threadbare cloth. The one who winces when she lifts a stool. The one whose pain doesn't get noticed, because it's not dramatic, just permanent. No one talks about this part. They talk about hard work and strong girls and women who endure. They talk about how you have good hands, never seeing the damage. They laugh when you say your back hurts. They say, "You're too young to complain like that." You nod. You smile. You go back to work. And you carry it all. The pails, the pain, the silence. Because being broken quietly is part of the job. You churned too long. It wasn't on purpose. You didn't mean to ruin anything. You were tired, bone deep, brain fogged, eyes half closed kind of tired. You'd been milking since before the sun rose. You'd carried water. You'd fed the chickens. You'd scrubbed a pail that someone else left as sour. You were supposed to churn for 30 minutes, maybe 40. You lost count. Your arms moved without thinking. Just up, down, like a prayer said too many times to still mean anything. And now the butter's gone bad. It smells wrong, sharper, sourer. The color is off, too pale at the edges, too slick in the center. It doesn't hold its shape. When you press it, it wheezes. When you touch it, it clings like guilt. You don't say anything at first. You scrape it into the wooden mold, smooth the top, and pretend it's fine. Maybe no one will notice. Maybe the lady of the manor won't taste it herself. Maybe it'll get spread on dark bread and vanish into someone else's mouth before anyone realizes it's cursed. You carry it to the kitchen like it's made of glass. The cook is the one who notices. She lifts the lid, sniffs once, and glares. Her mouth twists. She doesn't say anything to you, just wipes her hands on her apron and disappears up the stairs. The next time you see her, she's not alone. The lady of the manor stands in the doorway like a statue carved from frost. Tall, immaculate, lips pursed, one ringed hand held high like she's posing for a tapestry. The butter is in her other hand. She's not holding it delicately. Her voice is calm. That's the worst part. Not angry, not shrill, just flat like disappointment wrapped in silk. She says the butter has ruined everything, that it was meant for a feast, that guests were coming, that now the bread will be dry, and the sauces will be ruined, and the table will look poor. She says the word poor like it's an infection. You stand there, hands clasped in front of you, head down. You can smell the butter from here. It's souring by the second. You know it. She knows it. Everyone in the kitchen knows it. She says you've been careless, lazy, that your work has been slipping, that this kind of mistake reflects badly not just on you, but on the entire household, that her reputation is at stake, that people will talk. You are not allowed to speak. That would be disrespectful. So you nod. You nod while she lists everything wrong with you, your posture, your slowness, the way your skirts always seem dusty, the way your hair never looks quite right, even under a kerchief, the way you slouch, the way you look tired, the way your hands are always red and cracked and unfit to handle anything as delicate as cream. You nod until your neck aches. She does not yell. That would almost be better. Yelling means heat. Yelling means a storm that passes. This is ice, long and slow and deadly. She tells the cook to take the butter out back, to throw it to the pigs. You want to cry then, but you don't. Not yet. You spend the rest of the day scrubbing pans that aren't dirty. You get assigned to carry buckets from the well, even though your wrist is still swollen from the last time you slipped. You do it all without complaint, because you know. You've been marked. At dinner, you sit at the end of the bench and chew your crust in silence. No butter tonight, not even the scraps. No one looks at you. They've all heard. You go to bed early, not because you're tired, though you are, but because there's nothing else to do. You lie down in the dark and pull the blanket to your chin and let the cold in your chest sink a little deeper. That's when the tears come. Slow. Hot. They don't make a sound. You cry like someone who's practiced. Quiet, efficient, already bracing for tomorrow. You bury your face in the rough wool of your pillow and breathe through your mouth so no one hears. You cry because the butter went bad, because your arms were too tired, because your thoughts wandered, because there is no margin for error, and still you erred. You cry because the lady of the manor can forget this by morning, but you will carry it for days. You cry because no one said, "It's all right." No one said, "Mistakes happen." No one asked if you'd slept, if your hands hurt, if maybe the churn was faulty, if maybe the butter didn't go bad, maybe it was just overworked. Like you. You cry because the butter will be gone by morning, but the blame will cling, like sour cream, like shame, like a story you're too tired to defend. You are a milkmaid, you are a worker, a body, a task list in human form, but somehow you are also a subject of discussion. People talk about you, not to you, about you, around corners, behind sleeves, in the bakery line and at the well and during long walks home after vespers. You hear your name tucked between sentences like a burr in a hem. You're always someone's example, someone's warning, someone's question. She's always in the barn, the baker's wife says. Her voice is light, but her meaning is not. Too much time around animals, if you ask me, makes a girl rough. You didn't ask her. You don't speak to her actually, except for nodding when she weighs your bread. Still, she has opinions. So does her sister. So does the woman who tends the garden behind the chapel, who once claimed you were too quiet to be innocent. You don't know what that means, but you know it wasn't meant kindly. The blacksmith's son calls you earthy. He says it like a compliment, but you know better. He says it when he leans against a fence you just finished fixing, watching you wrestle a goat back into the pen. He says it with a grin, like you should be flattered. You're not. He has strong arms and weak thoughts. You once saw him spit into a basin and then try to wash his face with the same water. He talks too loudly and laughs at things that aren't jokes. You want nothing from him except distance. But even when you don't speak, people fill in the silence for you. They say you're wild. They say you're odd. They say you're simple. They say you think you're better than everyone else. They say you'll never marry. They say you already did, secretly, to a shepherd who vanished. They say you're bewitched. They say you're blessed. They say you talk to cows like they're saints, and that one day the animals will talk back. You don't correct them. You don't have the time, or the interest, or the energy. Most days you just want a nap. A good one. Not a stolen moment in the hayloft with fleas crawling toward your socks. Not a head down on the table while the butter churns sort of nap. A real one, with warmth and quiet, and the luxury of drooling without consequence. But rest is a myth for girls like you. You get up before dawn and scrub the world clean with your hands. You haul and you heave and you hush the goats when they scream for no reason. You fix fences. You patch buckets. You listen for the tone of a cow's moo and know if she's in pain. You want to be invisible, and somehow you're never more visible. It doesn't help that you're the age when people start trying to decide what kind of woman you are before you've even figured out how to stretch your spine without flinching. They want to put you in categories, pretty or not, marriageable or not, tempting or invisible, wife or waste. You don't belong anywhere. You smell like goats. You know how to stop a cow from bloating. You can fix a broken latch with 2 nails and an old spoon. These are not romantic traits. And you don't smile when people expect it. That's your real crime. Girls who smile are easier to explain. You tried once. When you were 12, you tried to be one of them. You wore flowers in your hair and let the neighbor's son carry your basket. You giggled. You fluttered. You sat on the edge of a fountain and waited for something to happen. It didn't. You got bored. You got sunburned. You got tired of pretending your knees didn't hurt when you sat like a lady for too long. So you stopped. Now you braid your hair because it keeps it out of your face. Now you wear boots because you step in manure 5 times a day. Now you laugh when something is actually funny, not just because someone with teeth and confidence expects you to. The girls in town think you're strange. The boys think you're a challenge. The old women think you're tragic. The priest thinks you should smile more. The goats think you're fine. You'll take the goats. They don't care what you smell like. They don't care if you sigh too much or if your sleeves are torn. They headbutt you when they're annoyed, and then they forget about it. You admire that. So you keep to the barn. You scoop feed. You mend the pen. You lean your head against a warm flank and listen to the heartbeat underneath. You don't say much. You don't have to. Let the village talk. Let the baker's wife whisper. Let the blacksmith's son grin. You have chores. You have peace. You have exactly enough time to dream of a nap. And then the goat kicks over the bucket. Again. You hear it before you see it. A low, strange sound, half groan, half sigh. Not a moo, not really. Something wetter, something worse. When you get to the barn, you already know the cow is down. Her name doesn't matter now. No one speaks it, though you all know which one she was. The one who always stepped carefully. The one who flicked her tail like punctuation. The one who let you rest your forehead on her side when your cramps were bad. Now she's on her side in the straw, legs twitching, eyes cloudy. There's foam at her mouth. Her breath is fast, then slow, then not there at all. You kneel beside her. The barn is quiet. Too quiet. Even the goats seem to understand. It's not just her. There's sickness going around. Something in the hay, maybe, or the water, or the air. No one knows. A pig died last week. A child the week before that. There's a smell in the village no one can name. A heaviness in the wind. Someone says, "Fetch the vet." It's generous to call him that. He's a man with a limp and a bag full of knives, none of them clean. He once reset a broken leg with twine and a Bible. He arrives sweating and muttering, kneels in the straw, and frowns like the cow has insulted him personally. "She's full of bad humors," he declares. "Needs bleeding." You want to say no. You want to ask what that means. You want to ask if he's washed his hands since the last death. But no one listens to the milkmaid. You are not an authority. You are an accessory, a witness. So you step back and watch him nick her neck with a knife that looks older than you. The blood is thick, slow, wrong. She moans once, then stills. You think she's gone, but it takes a long time to go when you're large and beloved and helpless. She dies in the straw, eyes wide, legs still tangled, mouth slack. No one speaks. The vet wipes his knife on his sleeve and shrugs. "It happens," he says, as though that's medicine. The barn smells like iron now, and fear. You help drag her outside. You shouldn't. Your wrist still aches and your back hasn't been right in weeks. But no one else wants to touch her. The rope cuts into your palms. She's heavy in a way that feels spiritual, like pulling your own grief out into the sunlight. They leave her near the edge of the pasture. Flies gather before you can walk away. By midday, someone's told the priest. He arrives in his usual robes, white with gold embroidery, already smudged from the road. He holds a small brass cross and a flask of something holy. He doesn't look at you. He doesn't ask what happened. He steps into the barn, mutters Latin, sprinkles water that smells faintly of wine, and leaves without touching anything. You wonder if he brought a shovel. He didn't. Of course not. That's your job. No one wants to bury the cow. No one wants to touch the body. But the longer she lies there, the more the sickness feels like a shadow stretching across the fields. So someone ties a scarf over their face, grabs a spade, and starts digging. It's you. Of course it's you. The ground is hard, still partly frozen. Every thrust of the shovel sends pain shooting up your arms. Your boots slip. Your hair sticks to your neck. Your lungs burn. You dig anyway. A hole wide enough for something that used to breathe, that used to blink when you whispered, that used to press her nose into your shoulder when you forgot to bring Clover. Someone helps, eventually. Sort of. A boy from the mill holds the rope. Another girl brings more dirt. But mostly, it's you. When the hole is deep enough, you roll her in. You close your eyes as she falls. The sound she makes hitting the bottom is not one you'll forget. You cover her in silence. That night the barn feels emptier, not quieter, just emptier. Like someone took a piece of the world and folded it in on itself. You go to sleep with straw in your hair and dirt in your nails, and when you wake up coughing in the dark, you wonder if the sickness has reached you too. It starts with shouting. Not the usual kind, not the farmer yelling at the ox, not the priest warning of sin, not children bickering over bread crusts. No, this is different. This is sharp and ragged and real, the kind of shouting that makes your skin go cold even before your brain catches up. A neighbor is in labor, early, unexpected. Her mother is in another village. The midwife is drunk, or gone, or possibly both. You're the only woman nearby. You don't ask how it happened. You don't ask why it's your problem. There's no time for that. Someone grabs your arm, points to the barn. You run. You've never delivered anything except milk and gossip, but no one cares. There's straw. There's blood. There's a woman screaming and clutching her belly, eyes wide with something that's part fear and part fury. You kneel beside her and remember something, anything, you've ever heard anyone say about birth. Get water, get rags, hold her hand, don't panic. You fail at the last one. There is no bed, no boiling herbs, no linen soaked in lavender and prayers. There is only a barn that still smells faintly of cow death, and an old wool cloak someone tosses over a pile of straw like it makes a difference. You hold her knees. You tell her to push. You wipe her face with a sleeve that hasn't been cleaned since Michaelmas. She bites your wrist once, hard, but you don't let go. Time loses shape. You count. You don't know what you're counting, but it feels necessary. Her breath, your pulse, the seconds between contractions, the number of prayers you half remember and whisper like a secret recipe. At some point, you find a stick. You have no idea why. But she grips it like a lifeline, knuckles white, screaming into the wood instead of your shoulder. You consider that a small victory. And then it happens. A sound, small and wet and furious. A squirming, slippery bundle that seems too loud and too fragile all at once. You wrap it in your cloak. You stare at it, stunned. You check, fingers shaking, heart pounding. It's breathing. The mother is still alive too, barely. She looks at you like she can't decide if you're a saint or a hallucination. You don't feel like either. You want to cry. Or faint. Or both. Instead, you tie the cord with a strip torn from your shift. You wipe the baby's face. You clean what you can. You press the child into the mother's arms and whisper, "It's done," though nothing feels done. Everything feels loud and spinning and upside down. They call it a miracle. You don't correct them. You don't tell them your hands were shaking so badly you nearly dropped the baby. You don't tell them you couldn't remember which direction to turn the mother when the baby's head got stuck. You don't tell them you said 3 prayers to 3 different saints and offered your soul to all of them at once, just in case. You just nod. Accept the thanks. Pretend your knees aren't jelly. Pretend your ears aren't ringing. Pretend you didn't throw up in the bushes behind the barn the second it was over. You walk home slow. Your cloak is stained. Your sleeves are damp. Your arms ache from holding life and fear at the same time. You get back to your cottage and someone's waiting. They say the butter's not going to churn itself, they say. Of course not, so you don't wash first. You don't rest. You don't sit and shake and whisper the baby's name to the ceiling until it feels real. You just go to the barrel, pick up the dasher, plant your feet, push, pull, push, pull. Like nothing happened. Like you didn't just catch a life in your bare hands. Like you're not still buzzing with adrenaline and awe and something dangerously close to pride. You churn butter until your arms hurt. You churn butter until the miracle feels like a fever dream. You churn butter until the world goes back to what it was. Cold, hard, loud, and ordinary. Because you're not a saint. You're not a midwife. You're just a milkmaid with blood on her sleeves and too many jobs. And tomorrow you'll be expected to milk the cows again. Like nothing happened, but you'll remember, even if no one else does. It's the fair, your one day off, the only one anyone gets, if they're lucky and the cows behave and no one dies the night before. The sky is blue with streaks of cloud like someone remembered to paint it special. The air smells like spices and spit-roasted meat and unwashed joy. You wear your least worst shift and a ribbon someone found in a drawer. You even brush your hair. There's music. Real music. Not humming while you scrub a churn, but actual flutes and drums and a fiddle that knows how to make your ribs vibrate. You don't plan to dance, you do anyway. Someone grabs your hand, and you let them. And your feet move in ways you forgot they knew. You laugh. Not politely, not behind a hand like a good girl. You laugh the way you did before your back started aching, before you had milk in your boots and lines on your palms from hauling pails too long. You laugh like someone who might be young after all. The food is terrible and perfect. Honey cakes that stick to your teeth. Apples dipped in something sharp and red. Roasted pig, greasy and glorious, torn apart with fingers because forks are for nobles and gods. You eat too much. You drink too fast. The meat is stronger than it tastes. You sip it like cider, then gulp, then forget that it's meant for sipping. It goes down easy and hits hard. Everything becomes softer at the edges. People look kinder. The music sounds better. The man who tries to kiss your hand doesn't seem quite as annoying. Someone spills a full mug of mead on your shift. You don't notice until later, when the sugar starts to crust and your stomach starts to turn. The dancing blurs. The music doubles. You remember twirling. You remember stumbling. You remember singing something you made up on the spot and swearing it was the best song ever written. You wake up with straw in your hair and regret in your mouth. It's morning. The fair is over. The magic is gone. And your head is not a head. It's a drum. A swollen, cracked, furious drum. Every beat of your heart is a punishment. The smell of roasted pig still clings to your hair like a memory that won't leave. Your shift is stiff with mead and possibly shame. Your mouth tastes like old honey and floor dust. Your feet hurt. Your eyes won't open all the way. You are back in the barn. Because joy has an expiration date. Because the cows didn't go to the fair. Because milk doesn't care if you danced. You sit on the stool. You blink at the udder. You press your forehead against a warm flank and consider dying. Just a little, just enough to skip this part. But the cow needs milking. Again. Always. She swishes her tail at your face and looks at you like she knows exactly what kind of night you had. She's not judging, but she's not helping either. You milk with trembling hands, with a stomach that flips every time the bucket sloshes, with a headache that pulses in sync with every squirt of milk. You try to remember the good parts, the way the music made your bones feel loose, the smile of the old woman who gave you a flower, the moment you forgot what work meant. But all you can smell is sugar rot and pig fat. Someone walks by the barn and chuckles. Rough night, they ask. You don't answer. Words take effort. You nod, or maybe you shake your head. It doesn't matter. You're too busy trying not to be sick into the straw. The second cow is less forgiving. She kicks, not hard, but enough to jar your balance and send your already delicate stomach spiraling. You steady yourself on the stall wall and take a few deep breaths that taste like manure and fermented apples. You promise yourself you will never drink mead again. You lie. By midday, the hangover has dulled to a background hum. You churn butter with one hand while holding your forehead with the other. You try not to cry. You hum the tune from last night to distract yourself. It sounds worse now. Everything does. But you're alive. You're working. You're back to being a milkmaid with pig fat in her hair and a headache shaped like poor choices. The fare was not fair. It offered joy with one hand and stole it back with the other. But for one night, you danced, you laughed, you forgot. And even if the cows didn't care, you did. You've prayed every morning, not because you were told to, though of course you were. Not because the priest said the barn must be blessed, or the milk would sour. Not because your grandmother whispered that cows can feel sin in your hands, but because it was a habit, like breathing, like aching, like waking up before light and saying a few words to something invisible, just in case it mattered. You've prayed with cracked lips, with a full bladder, with chapped hands pressed together like that made them holier. You've prayed after nightmares, after good dreams you knew wouldn't come true, after spilling milk, after slipping in mud, after finding Britagon and pretending you weren't crying. The words are always the same. Simple. Rhyming. Too soft to hear, but loud enough to count. Until today. Today, you don't. Not on purpose exactly. You just don't. You stand in the barn doorway, bucket in hand, sun just beginning to touch the thatch. You look at the spot where you usually bow your head, and you don't. You walk past it. The world doesn't end. No thunder, no lightning, no ghost of a bishop rising from the milking stool to strike you down with a sanctified ladle. Just the creak of wood, the low grunt of a waking cow, and the sound of your own heart doing what it always does, beating, stubborn and unimpressed. You sit beside the first cow. She looks at you with those same heavy-lidded eyes, as if to say, "Are we doing this or not?" You reach for the udder. You press. Milk comes out. You exhale. It shouldn't feel like victory, but it does. You didn't pray. You didn't beg the sky for mercy. You didn't offer yourself up like a burned crust of bread, and the cow still mooed. The milk still flowed. The world still turned. You smile. Not a big smile. Not a saint in a stained glass smile. Just a tiny curl of lip. Enough for your face to remember it still can. The second cow is fussier. Always is. You usually say an extra word over her. Something like, "Please don't kick me today." Today you say nothing. You just touch her flank gently and hum under your breath. She doesn't kick. She sighs. By the time you reach the last cow, you're feeling bold, almost reckless. You lean close as you always do, but instead of a prayer you whisper, "You know you're the favorite, right?" She snorts, loud, right in your face. You laugh, out loud, in the barn, before breakfast, with straw in your hair and no divine permission. It feels good. Like stealing something you were never meant to own and discovering it fits you better than anything they ever gave you. You finish milking, you wash the buckets, you stack the stools. No lightning, no plague, no hoof prints from demons on the barn floor. Just cows, and wood, and light. And your hands, still sore, still cracked, still yours. Someone walks past the open door. "Did you forget to light the candle?" they ask. You shrug. "It burned out." They nod. They move on. You don't feel guilty. You feel awake. Not like after sleep, like after sleepwalking. You realize you've been sleepwalking for years. Through chores, through prayers, through the idea that suffering only counts if someone is watching you do it with grace. You did what you were told. You were good. You were obedient. You bowed your head and said the words and waited for the blessing. And now, without it, nothing is worse. Somehow, everything is better. You hum as you carry the milk inside. You hum as you scrape the churn. You hum as you wrap your hands in cloth, not to look holy, but to keep the skin from splitting more than it already has. No one notices. That's the best part. You don't need anyone to notice. Your rebellion is small, quiet. Hidden in a corner of a barn, no one but you bothers to look at closely. It's a single skipped prayer, a smirk in place of a hymn, a whispered joke to a heifer who won't tell. But it's yours. And today, that's enough. You are older now. No one tells you when it happens. There's no ceremony, no marker, no morning where your reflection suddenly looks like someone else. It creeps in, quietly. A little ache in the knees, a stiffness in the fingers that doesn't go away with stretching, a grunt you make when you bend down and don't even notice until someone younger laughs. Your hair is tied back the same way it always was, but more falls out when you brush it. Your skirt hems are patched with years. Your hands look like they belong to someone who lived outside time. Cracked, strong, tired. You look down at them now, curled around a familiar wooden bucket, and think, yes, these are mine. And they've been mine a long, long time. The barn hasn't changed much. It still smells like hay and warm animals and something faintly sour in the corners. It's a smell you once found unbearable, then tolerable, then comforting. Now it's almost sacred. The cows are different, of course. You don't name them anymore. Not because you don't care. You care too much. That's why you stopped. There's a new heifer who startles easy and a big one with a birthmark on her flank like a question mark. They watch you with the same sleepy suspicion all cows seem born with. You nod at them. They blink. The ritual continues. You lower yourself onto the stool slowly. Your knees pop like kindling. The wood creaks beneath you. The first time you sat here, you were young, stronger, stubborn in the way only youth can be. You thought you'd escape someday. Marry rich. Run off. Move up. Move on. But the cows always needed milking. and your hands always knew how to do it. And the world kept spinning in a circle that looked inconveniently like a barn. You press your forehead to the cow's side and exhale. The warmth of her body seeps into your skin. Your back still aches, but today it's the familiar kind, the manageable kind, the kind that says, you've done this before and you'll do it again. You start to milk. The sound is the same as it's always been. A steady rhythm, software. Almost musical if you squint your ears. You remember a girl, yourself, cursing this job, hating this smell, dreaming of anything else. You don't dream much anymore. But you remember. You remember the goat that got loose and made you late. You remember Brita, the cow who let you braid her tail. You remember the baby born in the barn, the butter that went bad, the fair, the frost, the jokes you whispered to cows who never laughed, but understood all the same. You've lived your whole life in increments of milk and mud and mourning. You've measured time in churns and cries and small, quiet triumphs no one ever wrote down. The bucket between your knees is filling, slowly, the way it always does. Sometimes it spills. Sometimes it leaks. Sometimes it tips over when someone younger, louder, clumsier tries to help. But it always fills again. And you, somehow, are still here to catch it. A girl peeks into the barn, barely 12, eyes too big for her face. She's holding a smaller bucket. She doesn't speak, just watches. You know that look. You wore it once. A long time ago when you thought the barn was a punishment, not a home. You nod. She comes closer. You don't say much, just gesture. She kneels beside you, hesitant, curious. You guide her hands to the udder. Show her the rhythm. She tries, fails, laughs, tries again. The milk splashes. You smile. Outside, the wind shifts. You can smell rain in it. The roof might leak again. You'll fix it, or someone will. Or it'll wait another season. That's how barns work. That's how life works. You finish the last cow just as the sky turns the color of old slate. You stretch, slowly. Everything creaks, but nothing breaks. You carry the bucket to the shelf. The girl carries hers beside you. She's proud, rightfully so. It isn't much. It never is at first. But it's enough. Later, you sit in the doorway and let the rain come. It's soft, cold, cleansing. You sip tea made from old herbs in a chipped mug you've had since before the last famine. You look down at your hands, at the cuts, the calluses, the history, at the ghost of every cow you ever named, at the rhythm that never left. The bucket may never stay full, but neither will it stay empty, and neither, you think, will you.